Last week was my first week back after a couple years. I thought I'd start with the basics. And Buddhism rests on these Four Noble Truths. Dukkha, number one, translated in a lot of different ways. There's not total consensus about the best translation. Could be stress, could be suffering, could be bummer. But what we did instead of spending the whole time trying to define it was we actually went inward and just brought to mind situations that feel like they're between us being free and at peace. And in that experience of turning our attention to those various things, whether it's a headache or a familial disagreement or an issue related to money, just feeling the dukkha of the situation. But that's only the first noble truth, is that that exists. There is that thing that all humans experience in life. The second noble truth is about the cause of that thing. And again, not total consensus around how to define the second noble truth. Some people would say the cause of that thing is craving. They would say it's grasping. Some people would say it's clinging. And I thought I'd tell a little story that I think maybe illustrates to the best of my understanding what that second noble truth is pointing at. And you could probably find 10 other Dharma teachers who completely disagree with me. But I'm going to give you the results of my practice and insights and what I've learned from my teachers over the years. So something I like to do is to eat things that grow outside. And I don't mean like going to homestead farms. I mean like walking down the streets of Bethesda. I find it fun to remember that the things around here, even if they're planted, are still in their own way wild. They're growing and doing their own thing. My kids like it too. I have 3 little kids. They are 6, almost 5, and 2. And we all get excited by those little things that look like raspberries, by the plum cherries that grow. It's an ornamental tree that a lot of people grow around here. Pawpaws, of course, in September. June berries, mulberries, and the wild persimmons, all of which you can find within a mile of where we're sitting right now. But one of the kids' favorite things to eat is actually not really a food at all. It's honeysuckle. They love it. They smell it, right? It's that sweet aroma that's in the air. And they get so captivated by the process of getting the nectar out. And as it turns out, it has also been a useful spiritual teacher for our entire family. Of course, the first time I gave them a taste of honeysuckle, I did it myself, right? I smelled it, I looked at it to know that it was ripe. I picked a flower that had started to darken. I pulled it off carefully, making sure to preserve the entire flower all the way down to the little green nub. I pulled the little green nub off, making sure not to rip the bottom of the flower. I used a tiny, tiny part of my nail to get a hold of that stamen and slowly slide it out. And then, oh, right when the juice started to come out, I paused and I told them to stick their tongue out and I put it right on. And they loved it and they wanted more immediately. So I did that like 10 more times. But then they got tired of waiting for me to do it because it was slow and there was many of them. And so they wanted to do it themselves. But of course, they were ripping the flowers and picking the wrong ones and not being able to reach. And then sometimes asking for honeysuckle in September or December or April. when honeysuckle isn't growing. And as little kids are wont to do, when they don't get something they want, they got frustrated and annoyed and demanded that I pick more of it for them and make it come faster. But over time, they started to learn. They learned that there was a season. The season was late May. They learned that there was a smell that would tell them that it was ripe. There was a color that would let them know that the flower was ripe. There was a method to picking the flower, pulling the bottom off, extracting it. They knew that some of them were more capable than others of doing it. And as they learned this, their frustration calmed down because they came to know what was and was not possible with getting the sweetness out of the honeysuckle. It was just an understanding. It is capable of providing this at this time in this way. They still enjoy it. We still do it, but it's not that stressful. No big deal. So the way I might put the second noble truth, the cause of dukkha, right? Because there was a lot of dukkha in the beginning, and then not so much later on. The cause of dukkha is trying to squeeze something out of the situations that life presents that cannot be squeezed out. It is not understanding the logic of things, the limitations of things, the steps necessary to create conditions for things to happen, or the limitations of what can happen even when those conditions are in place. The world operates based on rules. Some of them we know, some of them we don't know, some of them, even if we know, we can't really do, right? But it's a world of causes and effects. And the second noble truth is when we walk into this world, this logical world of causes and effects, just trying to get something out of it without understanding how that process works, or being open to learning how that process works, or being comfortable with the fact that we may never fully understand or have the skill to get exactly what we want, that is where we suffer. So it's really about that attitude towards it. It's when we get so caught up in a desire to taste something sweet right now, to feel better right now, to get this person to stop doing that right now, to get this political dynamic to change right now. When we identify with a single desire and forget that all of these things came to be based on causes and conditions, and that the only way they'll change is based on shifting causes and conditions that produce a different result, some of which may be immediately available and many of which may not. And this to me is the essence of this second noble truth. Either every moment is met with this basic understanding that this moment came to be because everything in the universe led up to it right now, and that it will give rise to the logical conclusion that is being created, or we're meeting this moment with a very narrow sort of fixation on what we want to squeeze out of it. Laws be damned. That's the difference between being at peace and being miserable. Or maybe if misery is too strong a word, being at peace and being stressed, or being at peace and being bummed out, however you want to define dukkha. And to take it to a meta level, there was an extra piece of dukkha there for me as a parent to wrestle with, and for me as a Dharma teacher to wrestle with, right? Which is I wanted my kids to understand right away that they couldn't get the honeysuckle that they wanted, right? I wanted them to be free of their dukkha, and in doing so, I created my own. Come on, guys, I can't do it that fast. Just relax, right? And then I had to understand that they were like little pieces of honeysuckle. They needed to learn. They just needed to ask enough questions, be frustrated for long enough, and eventually they chilled out. And it's the trickiest part about sitting in this chair too. Sometimes during the meditation, I can sort of feel, people tensing up, see, a sigh of frustration or shifting. And maybe I'm imagining, or maybe I'm really sensing it, but I'm like, oh, some of these people are suffering. This is an unpleasant experience sitting quiet like this for 30 minutes. And there's a part of me that wants to save you all from it and just say, forget the meditation, let's talk. But then we're skipping a step. This is an essential part of the process of releasing our minds from dukkha. Because what you're doing is you're just sitting here watching how this whole thing works. This thought happens, this emotion arises. When this emotion arises, it feels unpleasant here. And this perspective is what's in the mind. And there's this kind of thing. And just, you're learning how the system runs. And it would be a grave mistake for me to try to save you from that. Next week's talk, actually next month's talk, will be on the possibility of freedom, which we've already hinted at a little bit this week, but we'll go in deeper. And I'll pause there.